and I'm still bitter. I'm still angry. I'm still frustrated. When I go home, I get so upset when I see all my friends still sitting at that table. They call me Two-Faced now. That's my new name when I go home, is Two-Faced. Because I'm too good, now I'm too good to be sitting at the table with them. They look at me like, oh, you know, you're too good now, get away from me, get away from me. And I'm like, no, I want that to influence them.
I always tell in my classrooms how much of a struggle is to be Aboriginal. It really is. Not only are we struggling with mainstream society and everybody else, we put each other down more than anybody else does. And I think that's the hardest thing to get over.
I haven't lived with my real family much. I've been adopted and I was raised in a white community. I've had contact with my natural mother, and just recently she told a sister of mine that I'm no longer considered her child because I'm whitewashed.
I've heard elders say that gossip is the biggest killer of a person's spirit. And not just the person who's gossiping, but the person who's listening to it is just as responsible for the destruction of themselves and their family and community. And so we can call this gossip, or we can recognize it for what it is. It's not just gossip. It's lateral violence because it includes much more than just talking about somebody. And it's the most destructive thing there is.
The biggest form of lateral violence that hurts me a lot is because I have such a white face. And when I'm a First Nations person, I work in the Aboriginal community. And having comments made to me like, you know, we can't have you speak because we want to have a real Indian speak. So what if I've done work nationally and internationally in this to promote and help my community? We want to have a real Indian speak. For me, that's kind of like soul murder. That's how deep the hurt is.
Those people who struggle at ceremony or in corporate business or in Aboriginal organizations with who we are based on the color of our skin have their own health issues, personal health issues to deal with. And they themselves have to take responsibility for their own prejudice within our own Aboriginal community.
My mother's white. My mother's English. She was raised by Dutch parents. She's got blonde hair and blue eyes. And because of that, I was always ridiculed. I was called half-breed. I was called just about anything you could think of. And the more and more it was said to me, the more and more resentful I became towards my own people.
I get really nervous when lateral violence is just applied to us, because lateral violence is everywhere. It's not just with Aboriginal people in the way that's defined, where, as I understand it, it would be members of a people where the membership are violent to each other. That's how I would define it. But even within that, it's usually somebody who has one up on you, right? Like the full-blooded Indian versus the half-blooded Indian. You know, like there's always something where you're not quite there.
We're First Nations, we're Métis, we're Inuit. We're so diverse that we have to acknowledge that every one of us are a part of our community and have an important part to contribute to the future of our community. Blood quantum, if there's anybody that could come in Canada and tell me that they're better because of their blood quantum, I'll say that they themselves are struggling with their own identity issues.